Good to see you. Long time.
Actually, straight out the gate, yeah, great to see you. Fucking hell, you're
Yeah,
always a
I think.
person. I would get excited when I know I'm on a bill with, when back in the day when we haven't been on a bill together in ages. But I go, oh, you know what? You can have a proper natter with you down the back. Like, do you know,
Oh, that sounds. I
I've
appreciate
forgotten
that.
my
Now.
stage call. You know, when you're getting called to, oh, yeah, because you've always got something to say where it isn't the usual out shy talk, where it's like, you know what I mean? Oh, so that's more of it. So it keeps it, yeah. You know, just and not in fairness, comedians tend to have, but I used to enjoy our natters down the back of comedy clubs. But
Yeah,
you're in London now.
I am. Yeah, I think the last time I was chatting to you was outside the Inter, and I think you'd just gotten the role in the play, the touring
Yes,
play.
yeah. Yo,
What
Christ,
is it?
yeah,
Befriending the caveman? Is that what it's
yeah.
called?
Defending the caveman. Yeah.
Defending the caveman. Yeah, yeah. It's great. You were over the moon. I remember. It was very exciting.
It was yeah, and it was geez, it was mental. It was mental just to see how, more than anything, the education of how a professional outfit really runs a setup, you know what I mean?
Sure,
Like,
sure.
and the imposter syndrome that I felt straight out the gate, because they're like, they wouldn't let me pick up any of, because I wanted to help when you're picking up stuff, you know what I mean? And because they have, props and they have, staging and stuff, and they're like, no, that's
We
not
have
your job.
people for that.
We have people for that. That's not your job. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, but sure I could. They're like, no. Yeah, that took a bit of learning. And then, trust me, 3 shows into like a few, I'm like, yeah, that's not my job. I think you're fine. I was a test in no
Yeah.
time at
You're
all.
like,
Like,
where is my camembert cheese in my green room? I'm sure I requested camembert.
I tell you that it brings you back down to earth though when you go back doing comedy clubs again. It's like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Landings.
Hard landing.
Literally hard landings you're standing on with a bunch of other blokes just looking at each other going,
Yeah.
all right, that's the crack. But the last time we got to interact, I was trying to think when the last time we met. The last time we got to interact was weirdly on News Talk, where we didn't actually get to chat at all. But
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that. And I think I even was kind of trying to pit us against each other, but
yeah,
we had pretty much the same viewpoint. So as I recall, John Cleese had made a tweet that I think in retrospect was fairly inoffensive. He said something about Ireland, Tom. Is that right?
yeah, he did. Yeah, he slagged off. He said something about, well, that's just the Irish for you, kind of a thing. It was an old guy tweet, like, but he was just poking the bear, like, just to see what had happened. And
Exactly. And I think you, and I hope I'm not misspeaking here, I think you were kind of being positioned as sort of a free speech advocate.
yes,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
was and I was being positioned as a sort of liberal cook. Uh, or I was being positioned as some sort of a fat dandy. Um,
You're such a cad. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
and I think we were. Ivan was kind of saying, "And you think this, Flanagan?" And I was like,
Yeah,
"Well,
yeah.
actually, I don't know if I have said that." I was very being quite funny, and me and you just kind of like I think we're in agreement on this
Yeah.
call, and Ivan trying to ramp it up, which is his job, And this was kind of a lighter part of the show, I guess. But I remember at one point he said, and I hope I'm not misquoting him. He said, "Oh, I mean, I can't believe a comedian, is complaining about other comedians." He said that to me, and he said, "You're not even allowed to make fun of disabled people anymore." And there was this kind of pregnant pulse where either you or I knew what to say. And then I said, "Ivan, in fairness, I'm not sure why you would want to make fun of
Yeah, I
disabled
remember
people."
that. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then the call subsequently, the interview was subsequently ended. But yeah, you're right. I think that was the last time we chatted, if you like.
I often wonder about those things, like, because at least he, and on the hard shoulder, or at least he would have there was some bit of crack out of him. But I was on. They called me about the Dave Chappelle thing the other day.
Right.
And they call it comedian. Like, like, if you want to talk horticulture, call fucking gardener. Like, but when you call a comedian, don't expect straight out of me. Like, And it was not Kieran Cuddy took over from Ivan, and he's normally gets the crack, but it was Anton Savage sitting in. And while Anton is a very capable driver, a very capable journalist, crack would not be at the front of his. And he was trying to sensationalize this thing. And he was like, what do you make of it, Tom Mahoney? I went, to be honest with you, it was, number one, a really weak tackle. He led with the outside shoulder. I mean, he nearly knocked himself out. Number two, Chappelle should have seen that coming from a mile away, should at least fended or sidestepped it. It was a disgrace. Silly, 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 right? I was like, what? So you're telling me now? Oh, here we go. I wish I had Peter Flanagan on the other fucking side so we could actually have a bit of crack here. Like.
Yeah, Anton didn't quite understand that he's speaking to a comedian and there might be some tomfoolery.
Yeah, the scandal, the notion of that, like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, right. I'm surprised at that, but I'm also not that surprised.
No, he was to be honest with you, he sounded like a guy who'd one eye on the clock, one eye on like he read the word comedian. He read it aloud, but it didn't register in the head at all. Like,
yeah. I think it's hard to know what they want sometimes when you're asked to do these things. And sometimes I remember the interview with Ivan that time, the producer beforehand kind of gearing me up for a different type of conversation. And then we're kind of thrown out there and you're on national radio. You know, your alpha is listening in the next room just to see how much of a prick you make of yourself. And you know, the stakes are a little bit higher than you anticipated, you know.
So tell me how, because I remember chatting with you when the London thing was about happening. I think we were downstairs in the Crunch and you were over and back and work. I don't know, had they given you a trade like it's the American football or something? Jesus Christ.
I was transferred. I was one of the hottest free agents. I was one of the hottest free agents in Bank of Ireland. Yeah. I was, I had a day job for most of my time in Dublin. And I blagged. I knew they had a London office. They had a kind of outpost in London, and I knew I wanted to get there, but they didn't have any. Like I've no real love, no real growl for banking and like qualification. I blagged a job in there the first place, and now I was trying to blag a job over in London, and they needed somebody to work in transformation, change and transformation, a kind of IT transformation.
Okay.
Right? And I remember meeting a guy, English guy, in the Marker Hotel in Dublin.
Yes.
And he had this vacancy, and he bought me tiger prawns in a kind of a garlic, in a kind of garlic.
So specific. I love this.
Yeah, I remember it so vivid. And it's really hard. And I'm like in my mid-20s at the point. I'm already ridiculous. I mean, I'm in an ill-fitting suit trying to sound professional.
Yeah.
And I'm eating.
Are you crossing your legs the wrong way as well? Like
your legs are crossed the wrong way. You're trying desperately. Like, how do you eat a garlic prawn?
I know.
With a banking executive, and you're trying to sound intelligent. And I said, yeah, I can do that. So I got a transfer over to London, and yeah, but my what I really wanted to do was perform comedy. And
yeah, of course.
I mean, that's the problem when you've got a day job. You're kind of like a closeted comedian.
You know
what I mean? And
yeah, you bring the trainers in the bag, like, just, you know. Yeah.
It's kind of eating you up inside this double life, you know.
I love that. I've never actually put it. That's perfect. I knew you being a good writer would actually. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. Yeah, where you just. What are you doing this evening? Oh, nothing.
Yeah, how was your weekend? Oh, I just had a quiet one.
Yeah, I had a quiet. Because, you know, in so many instances, even if you did, like, you can come out with it any, because we're accepted nowadays, Peter. It's it's in most circles we're accepted anyway. You know what I mean?
2022.
But you know, when you say it anyway, you may as well have said beekeeper. You know what I mean? Because it's so far from anybody's realm. They're like, oh, is it nice? You're like, yeah, it was, yeah. Because there's unless somebody has an absolute grow for stand-up, there's no way they're going to, number one, overly give a shit, but number two, even try and process it, like, because it's, I'm not going to say it's akin to, you know, being an astronaut, but it's that far removed from a lot of people's. They're like, oh, do you not just grow in a field and somebody, do you not just turn up on telly? No. Oh, that's a thing. Is, you know, that's what I've gotten an awful lot of late, especially doing a lot of these rural places. That's what I've gotten. It's like, this is great, but I had never considered that you could not be off telly, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the big difference between the UK and Ireland, is that over here, every small town has like the local monthly comedy club. And in Ireland, it just isn't really, there isn't that tradition. Like, I mean, we're both from small towns, right?
Yeah.
There isn't just that tradition of the theater in like Newbridge. You know what I mean?
The entire county of Tipperary doesn't have a fucking theater fucking vibe. Trust me.
Yeah, and you know, there was no working men's clubs, because in a lot of towns there were no working men.
Yeah, they were all in England working.
Yeah, in the work. Well, God, they would go to the working men's club. So there was no tradition of like going down to see a comedian on a Friday night. After work. You know, where so the one of the challenges, I think, and you'll probably know this better than me at this stage, when you go out to an Irish audience, first of all, everyone thinks they're hilarious.
Yeah.
And also, so they're quite self-assured in their own gasness, and they don't know you.
Yeah,
you haven't been on television that they're aware of.
Yeah.
So they don't totally take you seriously, you know.
Of course.
And they'll give you a chance, but they would prefer to be part of the show. They love crowd work. And you'll get good-natured heckles usually from Irish people. They want to be part of the show. Whereas in England, you go out to, I did a gig in like a borough hall. Like you'll go out to these bumfuck English towns, and you'll be performing in like a church hall, or like an old Quakers building that they would have handed out soup to Irish people in the in the 19th century, you know. And there's like all these kind of stony faced, you know, retired accountants who are sitting there, and you're the comedian. They had a different comedian last month. You're this month's comedian, and they expect you to be able to do the job. You know, and it's a totally different perspective, I think, on live entertainment here.
Isn't that like, I've often said it, like, there's just, you get some of the garrison towns, all right, would have a decent theater go, but you get then, like I did it, that one of those rural places I did, it was in a place called Cloheen, small town. They call themselves a town, but it's a village, and it's going nowhere. It's a beautiful, picturesque town on a nice drive, but it's not on the way to anything. But incredible people to go out to something, to go out to a show.
Yeah.
Even though they have a village hall and stuff, but incredible. Like I put on, I've asked, you know, I was asked to put on one show, and within 2 hours she rang and said, "You better be getting ready to do a second show." I was like, "What?" She goes, "That one just sold out."
Wow.
And 3 hours later, the other one had more or less sold out. It's like, what the? But
that's
I don't know what it is. Now you could go to a large town here, and you're not going to get that at all. You're not, because it's sports over everything. Sports over everything. But whatever it is, I need to find the ingredient. I need to tap into this and start actually going around asking people, why are you going to this thing?
There's a special sauce there somewhere.
Yeah, there has to be.
They're not fundamentally different from English people. And if you live in one of these small Irish towns, like, you still need a good date night. People still use Tinder, you know. Yeah. People still want something different to do that isn't the pub. And you've probably tapped into what it sounds like. You've tapped into some community, like the word of mouth sold the first show, and now there's demand for a second show. I think of like Jer Staunton's gig down in Castlebar. You know, there are these, if you can tap into the community aspect of these small towns, people will go and trust you.
I think what I was literally making notes on it, going, this is going to be a study as to see how it happens, because if we can find it in another way, and much like Castlebar, it's a self-contained town in that there's good employment there. And what I've noticed by a lot of these people I did a gig there a couple of months ago with Bernard Casey, and that's where it twigged in my head. And what I noticed was a lot of people were from nearby, but they all seemed to be working in small businesses around, and the entire work staff came out to it. Do you know what I mean? Right. So there'd be a wood mill up the road. They might have 15 people working, including, the office staff as well. They all came to it because it was like, well, what else are we going to do? Which is a great attitude to have. Like, but again, you go to a town, one of the biggest inland towns in the country, in Clonmel, couldn't pull people out by the teeth because while there's a lot of employment there, everybody travels home. It's like a mini city vibe. They all travel out to their villages, back to, so
they're not there on the Friday, Saturday night.
No, they are not. It's there's no community in it in that kind of sense. So tapping into that, it's interesting. I might see, can I somehow create the English. This is a thing that's going to happen. You'll enjoy it. Trust me.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Trust me.
Yeah. It's because I remember we did a gig, myself and Delamere did a gig for the local GA here. 350 people packed it out, and I would say 15 to 20% were actually from my local village. They were all down the pub going, fuck that, Now I know they say don't, never be a prophet in your own parish or whatever they say, like, but
right,
you know what I mean? It was just a strange attitude to it.
Yeah.
So have you jacked all banking then? Have you walked away from all banking?
Yeah, I made a really smart decision. I left Bank of Ireland in 2019. I was like, right, 2020 is going to be the best year of my life. Oh yeah. Diary's full. This is my moment. So by the end of March 2020, not only was I not a full-time comic living my dream in East London, I had just moved back in with my parents.
Wow.
Yeah. It was oh shit. It was like it was kind of like just shock more than anything.
How fast was the turnaround? Like, would say Leo made the announcement, Boris was making announcements.
Yeah. So I forget the exact timeline. I think England and Ireland were like a week out. They're like a week apart. So my last gig was downstairs at the King's Head. I don't think I've ever done it, a crowd chant. It's like one of these really old comedy clubs. It's been around since
I think I have done 80s. It. Yeah, I think
you probably have. You've probably done it at some stage. And I remember doing it on the Saturday. And it was St. Patrick's Day on the Tuesday. And we were running Irish gigs on the Tuesday. And it was like, will they go ahead? Won't they go ahead? And I remember on the Tuesday, like, we were still accepting ticket sales. And then I rang my business partner for that particular show. And I said, look, we just got one of the acts who just texted us to say, look, my housemate is ill. I don't think I can come in. This is before antigen tests. This is before anyone knew. Like, we just panicked.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do the show. And I said, look, let's not do this. So we pulled it before the venue, and then the venue pulled up. It was Top Secret Comedy Club, and they pulled all their shows. And then it was it. It was kind of like it happened really quickly. It was denial for a while, and then it was all gone. But I remember on the Saturday night, kind of my opening sentence was like, Jesus, like, you remember Brexit? How great was Brexit? Because Brexit, it's easy to forget when that's all anyone talked about. Yeah. And then suddenly within the course of a week, it was like this, exotic disease from Asia, and that got a big laugh. I was like, geez, why are we out? We're all mad. So I remember walking to the gig, and Ireland was locked down. Everyone's freaking out in Ireland. But walking to the gig, you're passing packed restaurants, packed bars on my way to crowd chant. I'm saying to you, are we mad for coming out? And then this girl in the front row had just this really clear, consistent cough.
Oh.
And the first time she did it, I was like, ah. But then the second cough and the third cough during my set, I was like,
you've seen way too many zombie movies for that.
This isn't funny. This isn't funny. And it wasn't, and I was, oh man. Yeah, by the Tuesday it was all over.
Jesus. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
The my one. Yeah, it was just that morning. It was the morning that Leo announced it from whatever. And that was the year we'd done Caveman 2019. And they were so happy with the turnout. You know, they went, all right, now that's the way they do it worldwide. They'll give it a run with a few grand put behind it, advertising wise. It suck and see kind of a thing. And if it's a goer, they'll put big money behind it. Oh, 2020, Peter. We'd booked out the Liberty Hall for the entirety of September.
Oh man.
Yeah. We were taking it by storm. They were putting mega bucks behind it. And it was like that morning, like just a phone call came in going, yeah, I'd say, Tom, I'd
Take
say,
it out of the diary.
Take it, well, at least write it in pencil, at the very least. Little did I know I could have fucked the diary into the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those things where you think, I really thought I'd be back in London by June.
Yeah, of course.
And just kept going and going, you know.
Well, we moved down the country. We were in Enniskerry, so we weren't exactly in Dublin anyway, but it was literally one Tuesday of cooking stuff outside on the barbecue or whatever. And it's like, we just fuck off. And ourselves was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Do you know? Yeah. And literally everything half the price immediately. Like, you're like, oh, well, this makes a bit more sense anyway. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But you're back. You're back. When did you go back then?
So I moved back. I was kind of back and forth last year.
Right.
So I kind of I did my first gig back June 2021 in England. I got like an Airbnb for the month of June. And then I got another Airbnb kind of month of September, and then was back and forth October, November, December, just weekends here and there.
Yeah.
And then
did you tell people that you were over and back, or did you make up? Yeah. You know, did you kind of you want?
Vague.
Yeah, you want them to think that you're always available, don't you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You don't want people to think, oh, he's done. You know?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm around, you know. Don't forget about me. I'm around. So I signed a lease on a place in January.
Right, good man.
So I've been back. What is that? 4 months now, something like that. Living here.
What was it to establish that this is definitely back? You know what I mean? Or had you aimed for January, or was it going to go? Oh fuck it! You know what? Let's just do it.
I'd started looking for an apartment like November time.
Okay, right.
And I'd been doing bits and pieces of work. I've been doing contract work. I managed to keep myself afloat with content writing for American finance companies, basically. So,
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So I was like, okay, I don't want to go back into banking. I don't think I can go back into banking because, you know, I'd left. And I want, so obviously, you know, I'm a journalist as well as a comic. So I was like, okay, well, what's the, how do I monetize this? I do have experience in financial services. I can write. How do I marry it? So I ended up finding this really kind of easy, really easy workaround for me. So that's kind of, that certainly kept the wolf from the door the last couple of years.
So what were you writing on behalf of financial companies?
So you would be doing everything from like blogs, or you know, you might open up, you know, their app, and all the words on the page, you know, I'm responsible for, basically.
Right, and which yeah.
So these companies will have a book, like we can all read and write, right?
Yeah.
But most of us can't if we're lucky enough, right? But they will have a marketing budget for somebody to come in and be their writer and just make sure everything like reads well. So that's
brilliant. I love hearing that, especially that you took it from a banking institution. I love that you took money from them. It just feels like you reached over their shoulder and into their pocket, even though you did it using your skills. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you went, this took no skin off your back whatsoever. I'll just have some of that cashola. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love hearing that.
I'm thrilled with it. So I got some money together. You know, London's expensive.
Oh, so, Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I don't know if it's even much more expensive than Dublin these days, to be honest with you.
It's probably not. Listening to Jesus Christ, some of the, because now I'm not claiming it, but it definitely is a coincidence that like 2 or 3 mates, probably actually 4 in total, but within like a month to 6 weeks, all scattered from Dublin. And
Yeah.
and it was the phone calls came in going, "You're moving, yeah, but how? Like, but sure, this place is dead in the water. Like, there's nothing we can do here." And truth be told, if I break it down, I spend about 15% of my working life in Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can do that 2 hours away. I think in fact, I'll be close to Galway, closer to Limerick, Cork, Waterford. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It probably makes more sense. Not
far more sense. Well,
yeah.
I mean, given that herself really always wanted to move to the countryside, my parents are down, and you notice it straight away. Like, I mean, like something that I haven't had in a long time is the inside track on things, you know, that kind of way. Cause like we want to build and stuff like that. So I was like, I putting the word out there, and it was like, people were actually, I know a couple of people from Blow-ins or whatever were looking for the same thing I was looking for. They were getting no traction. And out of nowhere, all of a sudden people were calling to my parents' house going, "Hey, does Tom know about, you know, before it ever goes, you know, these things." I'm like, the inside track, even small things down to like the primary school I went to is really difficult to get into now because it's a very forward thinking principal there. She's really, really, she's streets ahead of where, you know, really forward thinking. Like she brings in sculptors and has this kid sit outside with like a chainsaw sculptor one day. And I remember driving past and all these little kids sitting outside with goggles on, watching this guy with a chainsaw. I was like, that's way better than playing with shit inside. Like,
were they just watching the man with the chainsaw?
I hope they gotta go.
I
hope they gotta go. I know my young fella anyway would want to go. Like, but but I mean, again, it was like, you know, talk about waiting lists and everything. But again, because my mother is on the board of council, you know, I went to school with one of the teachers. Turns out the priest that married us is also on the board. So it's like, oh no, that's not a problem. We in
got
fact
a few connections.
But it's little touches like that. Whereas for years I kind of would have I'm using such a British thing to say here, but poo-pooed that kind of thing. You know, you know, it's all about, you know, fucking nepotism and whatnot. Fuck that. But it's suddenly it's okay. It's not too bad when it comes your way, like. You know?
Absolutely. And I love the disparity between nepotism and different. Like in London, it'd be like my uncle just got the inside track on this in this airline leasing business in Zimbabwe. We've just bought some airspace in Zimbabwe. We're going to be millionaires. In Tipperary, it's like, I know a priest. He's on the board of governors of the local primary school. My child is going to get a primary education. Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, after all, I mean, which one is better? I mean, one, you're English, the other you're not. So that's,
exactly.
But I love, because I mean, you and some of the lads properly, and I watch see your clips and stuff, and you probably poke fun at the English, like, and you don't give a fuck. Like, if it was done the other way around, they'd be burnt at the stake in the local town.
Well, do you know what? It's a balancing act, Tom.
It's
one I've learned the hard way.
Right. Right. Yeah. Have you gone over the line a small bit?
Oh yeah, for sure.
For
sure. And you know, I think what I will definitely temper it slightly now, especially if you're performing in East London, you might as well be performing in, I don't know, Dublin or
it's so
York
diverse
or whatever. It's so cosmopolitan. People aren't sensitive, generally speaking, and you can just tear into it unvarnished, and people get it.
Yeah.
But if you are performing in one of these kind of village halls,
and
you open with, you know, fucking let's get the Brits out of Ireland, guys. You know,
are you asking?
Your way. Yeah. Who's with me? So what I will do now is I will Terry Wogan. I will go full Terry Wogan. Be the acceptable face of Ireland. And you can do the exact same jokes you were going to do, but you have to be coming at it through the prism of woganness.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, he's joking, it's okay.
Yeah. And you've enough stage maturity and time to understand that. It's like the Irish rural crowd. You can't come at them with that soft touch stuff because they'll just go, well, fuck this. Do you know, they won't buy it. There has to be an almost like Iron Fist and a Velvet Glove. Like, you will have to beat them up a little bit at the beginning before they'll have any respect for you. So in the same sense, it's not like a comedy club in Dublin where they go, oh, great, well, we know what's happening here. We know what's happening,
Yeah. I mean, I've been booed onto stage.
Brilliant.
Like, your next act is from Ireland. Boo. Like, this would have been at the height of the kind of Brexit negotiation tension for like late 2019. I've had the full spectrum of that.
What? No, so your thought process, you're going, all right, tie up the boots here, Peter. I'm gonna verbally kick the bollocks out of this. Or are you going to go, I'm going to come around the side of that fucker's head, real subtle. Going to spend the first minute or two just real subtle, and then I'm going to make him piss his pants. Like, what's your thought process there?
My thought process is, okay, this is going to be a bear pit.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like, I'm thinking of one gig in particular. It was in East London. And I'm thinking, okay, there's actually dividing, because the country is so divided.
Yeah.
So there's a group of people here who've probably had a bit much to drink. They've probably read half a newspaper, and are associating me with some sort of plot to ruin Brexit. And they're booing. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. But then there's another group of people who are like embarrassed, and now a little bit uncomfortable at what's happened. So I'm playing I'm going to do my act exactly as I plan to do it, and I'm playing it to one side of the room. And if you can pit one side of the room against the other, that's really fun. That's a really fun atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky. I can get away with a lot by just grinning at them. I can get away with a lot, and my style is so punchy.
Yes. Yeah.
I can kind of just tear into them, and if I need to deal with a heckle, I'll do that. But I don't think you want to welcome it either. I've seen people who get up and they kind of try and take on the crowd, and you can't win. You can't win. You're the comic. You're the one telling the jokes. You're the one steering the ship always.
Yes. Yeah. It is to be booed onto stage. I don't think I've ever had that, but I did find myself in London a few times kind of going, oh, here we go. And I'm going, all right, here we fucking go. But you can, without actually being too, like, people are probably wondering, well, how the fuck did Peter tell who's with him and who's not? You can actually tell by their faces. The glow off their face will tell you everything you need to know, isn't it? Like, you're physically, they do not have to have, jack boots on and fucking, Union Jack fucking wife beater on. You can tell who's with you and who's not. Like, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, I give out about English audiences sometimes, but that's because I perform 95% of my gigs are in England. But like I did a gig, and there's drunks in every audience, right? I did a gig before the pandemic, and it was an important gig to me. It was a trial spot at a big club over here. And I walk out, I'm really nervous. You're getting the dry mouth, whatever. And I walk out, and there's these city boys in the front row.
Oh,
they're
lovely.
suited and booted.
A lot of cocaine.
Essex types. Yeah, almost certainly.
Yeah.
And I start making fun of the UK. Like, you're getting the shoulders crossed. They're looking up at you. They're not happy. They're giving a bit of this, right? Then I start making fun of Ireland. I also have jokes about Ireland, believe it or not. And at this point, there's a woman sitting over to my right hand side who's shit faced from bumfuck Midlands, wherever she's from.
Lovely.
And she's just asking, stop telling lies about Ireland. Stop telling lies about. So I'm getting it from one side, I'm getting it from this side. And I was, oh my God, like I'm so dislikable. I've managed to unite the English nationalists and the Irish nationalists together. And I think if I've given anything to the world, it's that.
How did the trial go anyway?
It was great. They brought me backstage and told me, welcome to the family. It was a lovely moment. And I think in an environment like that, as a comic, I hope this isn't too inside baseball, but I think when you're playing a room like that, and it's a big room, I think your instinct is, you asked me earlier, what do you do when somebody's boom? You know, it really depends, because in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
environment, most of that crowd couldn't hear the heckles.
That's the thing.
I'm
Yeah,
talking about somebody in the front row and somebody to my right. It's a big room. It's noisy. Most people can't hear them.
yeah,
So if I've got two options, I can like deal with the heckle, and then, as you know, as a comic, you're kind of leaving a lot up to chance.
yeah.
Um,
With a drunk
maybe,
person.
yeah,
Yeah,
especially with a drunk person. Maybe you'll think, maybe they'll say something and you'll have a comeback that is going to be brilliant. It could be an absolute cul-de-sac, and now you're 5 minutes into your trial spot and you're floundering, you
yeah,
know. Or do you just crack on?
yeah.
Do you just do your act? The rest of the audience can't hear them. Only you can hear them, and you're a professional. So what are you going to do? Are you gonna break? Or are
Yeah.
you gonna do your act? You know.
You know,
So
I did a very weird gig the weekend before last. I played the Three Arena. Um,
wow,
10,000 fucking
wow,
people. Insane. But it was God, God, thank God for acting skills, because you're inside your own fish tank, because you're 10
yes,
foot back from the edge of the stage, because they've set it up with pyros and everything for the boys that I'm opening for. And then there's another 15 feet to the front row. And for the first 3 minutes, I'm rocking it but the problem is they've got it set up in such a way that I can't hear myself outside. I can
okay,
barely hear them, even though I can see their faces laughing.
yeah,
So I'm powering through for all I'm fucking worth. And this guy there's a guy in like, like a fisherman's hat, from like Noel Gallagher from fucking
wow.
1999, and you're like,
And does he have the quirks hanging from the brim?
just
That's what
shy
we're
of
talking
that,
about?
like, and he's just
Yeah,
fucking,
okay,
he's just giving lip big, and it was strange because it was the two Johnnies, and he had a Dublin accent. He's just fucking giving lip, and I'm
yeah,
going, there, if ever there was a point, Tom, to absolutely not pay attention to that moment,
yeah,
because there's 9,999 other people,
yeah,
at least we'll say 990, that have no idea that this guy's saying anything, like.
yeah. So this
But
guy's in like row 17, section F.
yeah,
Uh,
no, he's bang on. He's
oh,
pretty
really? You can
close, and
see him. You can
oh,
see
I
him.
can see him. And the thing
Okay.
is, everybody is, and for a brief moment, I looked over, and the guy, like, this is when you have amazing people on tech, and the guy on tech, this guy was just fucking lip giving it loads, and I don't know if he picked up my eye, because I just got, for a split second, I kind of thought he must have picked up what I didn't realize anybody else is picking up. And between them laughing, I caught, do I? Nah, drive on. And then I noticed he was able to pick out a fucking light on the roof to light this guy from like 100-foot high roof down, lit him in the middle of darkness. And I went, fuck it. This is God telling me to do this. Like, so gave him a bit of a roasting. And the guy
right.
on the then you see what made it perfect. In exactly the total opposite to what you said about nobody would know. Of course, they had 3 cameras set up right there, right on the guy. Looked like a complete douchebag. I went,
that's great.
now, seriously, does anybody think this motherfucker belongs? Get like 10,000 people down on this bastard. I went, okay.
So he's up on the Titantron. He's up on the screen.
Two 40-foot by 40-foot screens for a split second. Everybody saw him, went, looks like a cunt, which he did.
And you've got the mic, but not only give you the mic, you've the mic through arena.
Yeah.
Now he's isolated in a sea of people who have not paid to hear him.
Yeah, exactly. And like, they may not have even picked up on it, but what was so great about him was he looked like such a douchebag. So visually, that's all people needed to see for a split second. Like, right. So
that's great.
But to back up what you were saying, in the Laughter Lounge a couple of weeks ago, had the exact same thing. Guys just drunk, this Welsh guy just blah, blah, fucking, and I knew there was no point, because everybody else was looking forward so attentively, laughing away. So literally, I just reached off the stage and shook his hand. And the guy was so bamboozled, he was looking at his hand for like 30 seconds, like going, and that was him done. He didn't know what had happened. He was like,
yeah,
okay.
You gave him the hand of friendship.
But he doesn't, he acknowledged me. Oh, fine, I'm fine now. You know what I mean? I was just like, you just look, I get it. You weren't held as a child. I get it. None of us were, but at least we made a profession out of it. You just hate your fucking life.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like sometimes it's like you really want to smash the heckler or whatever, but sometimes that's just your ego talking as well. Like I did a gig a couple of months ago now. It was down in Bournemouth, which is like Tremor on steroids, right? So imagine it doing a comedy show with Tremor, right?
Yeah, I have done, and I had more teeth than the combined audience. It was unbelievable. The hack of the humans that walked into that fucking room. Oh my Lord.
In that environment, you're almost hoping they don't laugh so you don't have to see the insides of their mouths, right?
I could see their souls. There's so much blackness inside their mouth. I could see their souls. It was just brutal.
Oh my God. So it's in a nightclub is the venue, and every ticket sold is a hen party or a stag.
Lovely. Mirrors all over the walls. Lovely.
Every ticket sold. Like it's targeted at these groups. So you've got maybe 200 people, 250 people in this nightclub environment. And I'm on last. I've got to do 20 minutes at the end. And they'd kind of stopped listening around halfway through the middle act.
Great.
So the person doing 20 minutes in the middle, they just kind of stopped listening to him. The MC's back on. He was doing like, he brought a prop on. He brought like, those Uber backpacks. So he got an Uber jacket and an Uber backpack, and he's on stage kind of mincing around, doing too long. Like if it's at the end of the show, just bring on the closer.
Nobody's going to give out to him for that. No,
yeah,
just bring me on.
I'm glancing at my watch. I'm like, I want to leave. I want to go. I want to go back. I want to leave this place. But he's mincing about, dressed as an Uber driver, and they're like either talking amongst themselves or just openly abusing him. Right? I get introduced, and it's like, when you're like, you want to do, you're booked for 20, you want to do 19 minutes, no more.
Yeah, because you can taste a glass of whiskey on your sofa at home.
Absolutely.
Right
and
in that moment.
At this point, they're just not going to listen, you know. So I'm just hammering with jokes, just doing the act. And to your point about seeing this guy in the fisherman's hat, there's this old lady. So I'm trying to keep their attention. And there's this old lady in like the far side of the room on the right-hand side. And she's looking at me, and she's doing a little jig.
Okay.
As kind of like a kind of an Irishman's jig, right?
Okay.
And she's jigging, and I'm like, just don't look at her. And that's because I'm playing to the whole room. I have to be really physical. I have to make a lot of, I'm playing to the room. I'm scanning the room. And every time my line of vision comes towards her booth, she breaks into the jig. She's really trying to break my attention. Ignore her. And then there's one bloke in like English people have an amazing, some English people, I should say, have an amazing capability to simultaneously look really hard and an utter pants, right?
Yeah.
One of these like skinheads in floral shirts?
Covered in tats, but be like a pig fucking Henry Lloyd.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly right. You've nailed it, right? This guy's covered in tattoos, kind of shaved head, was in this kind of really gauche kind of gold and black floral, short sleeve shirt. Lovely. Got the gold necklace on, and he's kicking off now. His mates they're in some little stag. So I have no choice now but to talk to them. I can ignore the jigging woman, but I actually can't ignore this guy. And you'll know from experience, like if you get taken on by a stag, you have to destroy.
Oh yeah. There's no reasoning. Yeah.
Like it's different if it's like a hen party, because women will band together and come at you. If you make fun of one of the girls, you're done.
Literally, they're called hens for a reason. Hens do the exact same thing.
Right, exactly. But for stag, your only option is to go super hard at the heckler. And if you go hard enough, if you get it just right, the rest of the stag will take your side because you're taking the piss out of their bait.
Yeah.
Right. So now this guy's going. He's made his decision. He's run out of cocaine. You know, he's glancing at his watch and saying, right, I've only 5 minutes left to go for this fucking Irishman. I'm going to go for it. So I can't even remember what he says to me, honestly. But I'm like, okay, I have to fucking go for it. Going for it. And he'd been flirting with a girl in the front row. And I was like, love, you're not interested, are you? And she's like, no. See, she doesn't like you. And it's like, I'm really being quite mean, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, what do you do for a living? And he's like, gives a kind of a joke answer. I'm like, you're unemployed. And he's like, yeah, I am. And I was like, so I was like, you know, I'm trying to get, it turns out he's the only single guy in the stag.
Right.
So he's unemployed. I'm really going for it. And then he's like, oh, but then he starts giving it back to me. Oh, you're a fucking comedian, whatever. And I say, you're right. I am, and I have been unemployed. Like, I know it's like, it's not easy, but like, I'm a comedian. But you know what? If comedy doesn't work out for me, something else will. You've got a neck tattoo and a floral shirt. You're fucked. And his mates are falling around the place laughing. The rest of the room are enjoying it. And I'm like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, you know, it's in that situation, you got to go for the headshot.
Oh, you have to.
But but if it's a jigging woman or, you know, a stray heckle in a big room, I think you kind of you do the action, move on.
Yeah, there was a guy. Yeah, again, it was in a comedy club in, was it? It was actually it was for a corporate, but weirdly it was a well-to-do corporate, but there are a lot of fucking headbangers working for him, like. And this woman had brought her partner. I don't know what he was to her. Did I care? But he was that guy. He was literally the clone of that guy. And he's fucking giving it all that. And the teeth are ridiculously white. And it wasn't a stag party, but you could tell everybody was kind of going, okay, he's too fucking much.
Yeah.
And I could sense everybody was on my side. I went, oh no. And there was no getting around it. I said, dude, you look like if I ordered Conor McGregor on Wish. What the fuck is wrong with you? I need that. As you got a hat, you got a fucking watch tattoo, a clock tattooed on the back of your hand. Like you could fucking read the time. You know, I just went to all that. What color white did you go for? Nuclear. What the fuck is wrong with you? You know, and the guy for a finish just fucked, and he was gone. And it was this beautiful moment. It's like, but also in a mature way, I felt bad for that had to be done. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like having to put down the family pet. It was like, look, you know, it was like 5 years ago, I would have loved that. I would have fucking loved that. But now it's like, trust me, lads, I'm better than that. Like, that's not just ripping into people. I write shit. This is, you know, so it was.
Yeah. You don't want to resort to stylized abuse of a stranger.
Exactly. Yeah.
There are certain environments where it's like, okay, I have to do this. You know,
I'm so sorry, but this is going to be.
But you know, and he's probably not a bad guy, but he probably thinks heckling is part of it. He probably thought, you know, but you know, in that situation, he wasn't going to shut up. He was being disruptive. I'm already in a bad mood because the gig is already so hard that if I don't just cut his throat, you know, I probably won't get rebooked even. I mean, you know, not that I want it to be rebooked, but I want to be paid and get back to London safely, right? So you got to do what you got to do.
The jig is an interesting one because you're there long enough now, and at least you can voice your opinion because you write for the Irish Times and journal.ie, which is class. Like,
oh, thanks, man.
It's fucking class. You know what I mean? You'd hear every so often lads will write a blog or something for a certain crowd, but then you see Peter's like, I'm just writing for the Irish Times. It's like, deadly. This will be a good, because you want to read something. The Irish Times is a great read anyway, but you want to read something that at least you can relate to, because so often, again, like the divide between myself and Anton Savage the other day, genuinely, if we had a proper conversation, we'd say, well, we both like driving fast cars. That's about it. Because
Okay.
let's be honest. But when you read your article, you're like, oh, and it's just like, you know, when you see your mate on telly, like, oh, I know what's happening next. Do you know that kind of? There's a cheekiness to it. I don't know what
Sure.
you're about to say next, but I love reading your stuff. But
Yeah,
because
man.
you're giving us a great insight, because we think we're the greatest in the world, as almost every country does. I mean, everybody's, but we've no idea of the perception of us. And it's always interesting when I go over and I meet friends who have lived there for a long time. And like Kieran, a mate of ours, and he's an engineer there. And he just said it. He goes, just casual racism pops up every so often in the office. I went, really? Still? I said, half these fuckers' grandparents are Irish. Because I know. He's like, in our office, one of the older architects, he would describe, you know, throwing a bit of a fit, you know, getting angry at something, through a bit of a paddy, you know what I mean? And he sat up like, all right. And even he got a subscription to a magazine, an architecture magazine, wouldn't you know? And it was being delivered to the office. And his name being Kieran, it's pretty simple as Kieran to them. But they just wrote the paddy on his,
Really?
and his desk and all the paddy. I was like, oh, okay, all right, right.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously you said you work in a lot of cosmopolitan places and whatnot, you know what I mean? So everybody's a mixed bag of everything. So it's probably a bit more forgiveness. But in bumfuck middle of nowhere, like, what do they think of us? Like, or can you pick up on that?
Yeah, it's so strange. And I think, like, I remember being in a pub in like West Sussex once, and the woman said to me, you know, do you find Father Ted offensive? And I said, well, no. Like, do you find Monty Python offensive? You know, in one
Yeah,
sense, Monty Python is a crude caricature of Englishness, but you know, it's written by English people for English people. Father Ted was written by Irish people. I don't find it offensive at all. But the truth is, they, like, in terms of the politics, they know nothing.
of
They
course.
know
Yeah.
absolutely nothing, and they care even less. In terms of the people, I actually think there's a pretty positive association with Irish people, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I think people like us, but they don't. They just don't understand it. They've known I think what we struggle with is that they don't know the history, that they
Yeah.
don't know what they did, you know?
And why
Like
would they? They did it everywhere. So,
yeah, well, this is it. Well, but their education system is Henry VIII, shagged a load of birds, Churchill, bit of a ledge. That's their curriculum, you
right.
know? And they're not, they have no insight.
I love that. Bit of a ledge. We'll leave it there.
Yeah, exactly. No insight beyond that. And what fascinates me about, you know, the Brexit situation with the Northern Irish border and whatever, this isn't even a question of geography. Isn't a question of history. It's a question of geography. You know?
Right.
They actually don't know where the United Kingdom begins and ends. They actually know. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of the German federal system. I don't know who Bavaria's biggest politician is, but I do know that Bavaria is not part of the Republic of Ireland, and they actually don't know oftentimes what's in the Republic of Ireland, what's in the United Kingdom, what is Northern Ireland with respect to Britain, what is Northern Ireland with respect to the Republic of Ireland. They've no clue.
Yeah, because I remember even I was chatting, you know, Rich Wilson.
Yes.
Chatting with Rich, and he was like, because anytime we ever met, it was always in the UK, like, and he's such a lovely fella, like. But he was talking about years previous being at I think he was at a wedding years and years previous in Ireland. You know, I was in Ireland. He was clearly in Northern Ireland the way he went. Because it was crazy, like there was guys with guns and things, and I was like, oh yeah,
what kind of wedding was he at?
Well, it definitely wasn't our neck of the woods anyway. And I tried to explain it to him, and you could see the surprise in his face, kind of going, but it was literally, again, it was like trying to explain where an Indian reservation begins and ends in Montana. You know what I mean? It was like he had no grasp of the geography of it. Like, but I find a lot of British people or English people, when they move from you know, from one part to another, they will say, well, I grew up, even when watching housing programs, which we tend to watch a lot of these days, but they say, well, I grew up in Sussex, and now I'm happy to be living in, you know, Shropshire or wherever. But when they point it out, it's almost like they have no grasp, they have no territory kind of grasp whatsoever. Whereas in Ireland, we very much do, probably based around sporting as well.
We break it down by county.
Yeah.
We've got the, you know,
and then provincial then after that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's something genetic in us, probably from the warring days of, you know, when we'd like 50 kings, you know what I mean, where every territory meant everything, you know. I don't think they give a bollocks, but it's one in, all in, kind of, because they still have a royal family and shit, you know, so there's like, well, we're all in.
Yeah. The big divide here, like I think in Ireland, the big divide is rural and urban, right?
Yeah.
And I think in the UK, it's north and south. It's
right.
it's the northern, the north of England and the south of England, and the kind of social and economic, cultural, whatever disparity between the two. You know, that's the big dividing line here. But you're right to say that beyond that, it's a bit homogenous. When certainly in the south, I couldn't tell you the difference between, you know, somebody from one shire and another, you know, whereas Irish people will know the difference between Offaly people and Laois people and Kildare people. Like there's different accents, there, you know, and they have accents here too, but you know, it all kind of blends into a certain Englishness for me at least.
How did you get your leg in the door of the Irish Times? Tell me.
A lot of emails. I mean, it's like stand-up. You're just kind of pitching ideas. You're sending emails. You're saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?"
Brilliant.
And I think I got an article with the Journal. I did a couple of articles with the Journal that did quite well.
Yeah.
I think I went on a bad. This was when I found my niche. I guess I went on a bad date with an English girl.
I remember this. Yeah. I can remember this article.
Yeah. And it did well. Like it went around the houses, and then I sent the article to the Irish Times and said, "Hey, would you like me to write something similar for you?" And they said, "Yeah, sure." So you know, so I was years ago. They've changed, you know, they've changed editors since then. You're just always kind of pitching ideas.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think of this? What about that? And they'll come back and say, yeah, we love it, or no, we don't want it, or we love it, but can you not say that about R. Kelly? You know, can you not compare? Can you not compare England's relationship with Scotland and Northern Ireland to R. Kelly's relationship with his with those unfortunate women? You know, can you not? Can we tone this down a bit?
But fuck me, that's where all the humor is, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, so it's always like, how many jokes can I get in? Like I had an article recently where I compared Vogue Williams to Alexander Lukashenko in Belarus, and the editor was like, "You can't, we can't print this."
Spot on.
You know, so yeah, it's an interesting process. What I do find is it's fun when you write something that may be, you know, because you know it's stand-up, you know, it can't just be clever. It has to be like laugh out loud. It has to get a guttural response for people. So it's nice sometimes to find a home for a line or a thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, so I like that. I like that part of it. What's scary about it is that with stand-up, you find out, you know, in an open mic night when the stakes are quite low, if what you've said is funny or not. Whereas I'll find out in like the comment section. You know what I mean? I get one and done. Maybe, you know, maybe the editor has a few edits for me, maybe not. But I find out I get one shot at it really for the line to work or not, you know.
It is the cruel, there's no net whatsoever with it. And it's funny you say that, because that you have an outlet for those juicy bits that you're going, what, do you know what, there's too much thinking involved. Like that's because there's I had a whole bit about the kind of people that you would meet on construction sites, because I briefly went back into construction and I'd forgotten that if you wrote these people into a sitcom, you'd immediately go, too much. No way. These don't exist. And they really do. And and to get people on side with the guy who at the very end, I revealed that I'm an absolute coward because this guy is so terrifying. But I tried to break it down for how, and it, honestly, when I wrote it, I went, this might be the greatest thing I've ever written down. The thought, the thinking, and bringing people around the houses. And Peter, I've tried it 3 fucking times, and it's too much. It's too much in the life. I'm going, where am I going to put where am I going to put it? There's no place. There's no place to stand up.
Out of interest, are you doing that bit in the club set? Are you doing it as part of your hour?
It was part of the hour, and I tried it both, and it was fine. But the big laughs happened 2/3 of the way. Big laughs happened fine 2/3 of the way, and then I get into I know I sound a bit broken, but you got to come with me here. Here's my explanation. Let's break it down for you. And I have these scenarios that in my head are hilarious and written down are really, really clever. But it just kind of, I'm getting a lot of kind of, yeah. So it killed me, but I chopped that off and put a nice.
It's hard.
And I put a nice bow on the 2/3 bit. Put a nice bow, brought it back around the house, and went blah 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 blah. And it killed me a bit, but I was like, well. It's really.
But you're getting those big laughs kind of 2/3 of the way, and you're keeping that part.
Absolutely. The problem being is the bit that I thought was badly needed was this really clever bit at the end that would, swing people back around. But it turns out it's not really needed, and it's just
so much of stand-up is like, what can we agree on?
Yes.
What can the comic and the audience agree on? Because if we go out there and just do what we think is funny, it's not going to, we're going to have short comedy careers. Like if you decided, well, the audience don't like this after 3 times, but you know what, I'm going to do it 300 more times. And I don't care if they enjoy themselves. But equally, if you only do what you expect other people to find funny, you're going to be dead inside very soon. So much the process is going out and seeing what can we agree on.
Yeah.
And that's a really good example of you have this, let's say 4-part bit, and they were with you up until kind of part 3, and then fell away. I was like, okay, I guess we can agree up to this point.
And that was literally it. It was literally it. And I got in, so I extracted the premise of part 4, condensed it down into 3 words, and hid it just before we come to the end of part 3, and that was enough. And it was like, well, I guess that's what a writer's room technically is too, in a way. But it was like, but Jesus, that was the thing. It was to get to the 2/3 bit. I wanted them to not fully agree with me. And this is how I'm going to get you back on board. And I thought I'm the most clever man ever. I've taken you one way. But then you go, here, it's Friday night. People are just happy to be out. They don't want to put all this thought into it. It's like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
This is where you're getting beyond yourself now, Tom.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a TED talk.
That's kind of what I was getting into. It's like, no, stay between your rails, Tom. Stay between your rails.
Yeah. You know what? And you might find that gets a different reaction at 3 p.m. in Edinburgh on a Saturday afternoon. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And you've got an entirely different, you're performing in a cafe.
Yeah.
Just off Blair Street or something, right?
And everybody's stroking their chin for the hour. Yeah.
But I think I hear that anecdotally here. Someone will have an award-nominated Edinburgh show, and then they take it on tour, and suddenly that one man or one woman show, that fringe hour, is just so different when it's on a Friday night and people are having pints, and suddenly there's a sad bit 45 minutes in. They're like, ugh.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing. It's a different.
Yeah. And I won't let you go without telling me, what did you study at TCD, Peter?
I'm so glad you asked.
This is actually the only way I got this man on the podcast, is that we were going to bring him around contractually to why and what he studied at TCD, and as much as he could possibly say about it.
Yeah, what can I say? I studied philosophy and political science, and I've only got one joke about it. And I kind of, it's a joke I kind of wrote it just as I was leaving Ireland. and it's been my closer for a while. I'm thinking about retiring it, but
Really?
it's a really nice bit about being in the social welfare office in Newbridge. Kind of just got back from Australia. There's nothing going on, and I'm going in to see this civil servant. And she's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I want to be a comedian, you know." And she's like, "Yes, this is in Kildare. In This is in Kildare. Don't even need to finish that
You
sentence.
mean
It's
you
in Kildare.
don't ride horses? What's wrong with
Yeah,
this guy?
you're not a jockey. You're not an aspiring soldier. You know what? You're not interested in herding sheep. So I want to be a comedian. Just do you have any other skills?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a philosophy degree." And she's like, so I've got a routine
Yeah.
based on using that as a premise. And yeah, it's one of those bits in your back pocket. It's like, okay, I can close on this, you know.
But I mean, in all fairness, I mean the jokiness, but you could almost study nothing better than, unless you're going to do, one-liners. But even still, they need a bit of philosophy to
Yeah,
really
man.
to
But you
root
know,
out the quality that to go mining for quality.
it's a bluffer's degree. Like, I studied with the political science because it's way more, it's way more is it quantitative? It's way more quantitative
Yeah.
than I expected it to be. It's a lot of like looking at polling numbers or analyzing trends over time. And I was like, I can't even do this. Whereas philosophy is so much more about, what do you think? You
Yeah.
know? So you could spoof, and I think but you have to spoof. You have to be articulate in your
Yeah.
spoofing.
Which
And
ironically is politics in a
yeah,
nutshell, really.
sure,
Like,
sure. And I don't think, looking back around to the articles, I don't think I'd be writing, but for me, they're almost like college essays. I kind of learned how to write in that style, writing a
yes.
philosophy. But you have to have an argument. You have to take a position on something and argue your position.
Well, that's the great thing about your headlines, or your is it'll draw you in, because while they're not completely on the nose, there's always a little poke in the arse, like, on, you want to have a read of this, rather than just
Yeah,
some
sure.
sensational shit. Like, it's,
Sure.
but
Well, I
they're,
always used to get those comments kind of at the end of the essay. So this is back in the day where you would hand in like a physical essay, and the lecturer would write his notes or her notes down at the bottom. And I used to get it like, don't know if you fully understood Kant's categorical imperative, but this was a good read.
which is all that counts. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. So yeah, that stood to me, I guess, if nothing else. And I got that bit out of it. I got my closing routine out of it. So it's something.
Class. And tell, are you going to Edinburgh this year?
No, I'm hoping to go next year. I think this year I'm just getting my bearings again. I'm back in the UK. I'm writing new material. I'm loving doing stand-up more than ever.
Isn't it unbelievable? The appreciation you have for people's faces is unbelievable.
Oh, man. Pre-pandemic, I was ready to quit. I was like, I think, do I still want to do this?
Yeah. I was in the exact same spot, because it was like, there's a lot of and some acting stuff was coming up, and I'm like, well, I mean, lucrative wise, this is what we're talking about. But just the exact same as that, I was like, do I love it? Like, you fucking having to head out on a Friday night and you're gone. And then you hit the odd stag party, and you're like, well, fuck this,
Yeah,
but
you're giving up your weekend a lot of times to go and babysit drunks in some instances, and I was kind of what you're afraid of is losing your spot. Yeah. So I was thinking it would be amazing if everybody had to stop at once.
Yeah, it's great.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. And then within months, fucking COVID-19.
Hold on, you manifested the fucking pandemic through your own greed.
I have powers.
I mean, I'm raging with you, but at the same time, that's really impressive. That's
yeah. That's the Trinity degree, man. That's
trainers for winners, baby.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But man, now that I'm back, I was surprised by how much I missed it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like going to open mic nights. And like I used to hate going to open mic nights and like bombing with you. Now I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I enjoy an open mic night now more than a club gig because I'm doing jokes that I wouldn't have had the confidence to do pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm just doing this because I'm enjoying it. And I'm doing more material that now feels more me as well. And it feels great. I'm shocked at how much I'm enjoying it.
Isn't that brilliant? And I wonder, is that wholesale across the way? Like, and although I was at a club a couple of weeks ago, and Jesus, and everybody had brand new stuff that I hadn't seen. I was so excited. I was like, oh God, that's a fucking killer. And this new kid was on, and I'd heard of him, and he did this bit, oh my God, about losing his hair. Oh fuck, it had me doubled. I was like, yes. And then a chap that I know went up and he did 15 minutes of the golden oldies. I'm like, you had 2 years, man. You had 2 years. Come on. Like, come on, Christ above. Talking about, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, but like that, exactly. And I think it's across a lot of things, probably fashion, fucking hairstyle, but I think people are giving less of a shit because it's just been so weird and people were just wearing pajamas for 2 years. You're like, I don't give a shit about, I just don't.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I'm writing stuff that I would have kept in the back of my head and went, I can't let this out to the public. I can't. But now it's,
you're taking risks.
Have it.
Yeah. And audiences, I think for the most part, are up for it. I mean,
they are because they see they can pick up on it. They telepathically, they're picking up on your excitement. When there's a warm, fuzzy feeling inside, you're going, I fucking can't wait to say this bit, next bit. And I'm literally running to the next bit going, I'm actually killing myself for not, timing like a stuff, but they can see it. They can see the giddy child in me going. And then like the worst thing ever, I start roaring, laughing at my own bit going, this is, I should not be doing this, but it's so silly, Yeah,
you're doing like genuine corpsing.
Oh yeah, genuine, going, this is silly. And I mean, I would be disgusted with myself if I was still grinning at it 4 or 5 more times. Like I'd be going, oh, stop now, Tom. Stop that now, because you're forcing that. Oh, can't believe I'm laughing bit. Which we've all seen lads do before, where they make that mistake in the middle of a sentence 20 fucking times. Like you're
right. Right.
When's the next? Because you had one only out last week. Was it the 6th? I saw the last one. Was this the last one out last week?
My writing, the article.
Yeah.
I'm actually, before this call, I'm just working on one. So watch this space. I'll probably pitch it next week and see where it goes.
I'll put all your socials. Twitter, you're fairly active on Twitter more than anywhere else, really. Like,
yeah, I usually for my writing, a lot of Twitter and Instagram are the ones for me. So at Peter Flanagan on Twitter and at Peter Flanagan Comedy on Instagram. I'm being more active on Instagram now.
Good, yeah.
Stories.
You followed me on TikTok even. What are we like?
I know. I can't figure out TikTok. I'm too old for TikTok already. But
no, right. But
yeah.
Trust me, you'll put something up that you won't give one shit about, and then all of a sudden your phone will literally light up. So I think, don't overthink. They named it fucking a TikTok. There was not a lot of thought process. So I think people, literally the most insane thing happened one Friday evening. I genuinely heard it and it made me warm and giggly inside, from a Polish person who, in a shop where I was speaking about gloves or fingers and toes. I said, at least your toes would be warm in these. And he went, oh, we don't call them toes. We call them fingers of your feet. And I remember thinking, that is the funniest, most adorable. An adult man is saying this to me, fingers of your feet. And imagine fingers. And I said that, I literally, a 10-second moment where I went, turns out Polish people don't have a word for fingers. They call them, or toes, they call them fingers of your feet. That's it. Put the phone down on a Friday, had a couple of drinks. Oh my Jesus Christ. Like 400,000 comments and views later. It's like, what? And now I could put up the best stand-up in the world. Wouldn't get a look in. You put up that stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
So lower the bar for TikTok. That's all I'll say. Lower the bar.
Okay. All right. Keep it simple.
Peter Flanagan, this has been absolutely beautiful.
Pleasure was mine, Tom. Good talking to you.